that, very, really, poor verb choices like stuff or got, and things like began, which those are all words that we can definitely like look at and pull away from our work immediately. Now you can't just go Control F that and then hit delete all because the word that needs to be there sometimes.
Yeah.
But you can certainly look at it because often the word that is a redundant word in the sentence. And that's just an example of one.
Yeah. So say like he wasn't that bothered. You could say, he cared less, or, really you can, there's more trimmed ways of saying things. And we do use that one often, don't we? And this as well.
This, that.
Yeah. And the other. That was a bad joke. And I think things like actually as well.
Yes.
And I think these creep into the text because we say them in speech. Like as you said, it kind of serves the purpose of when you say because you're kind of having a pause to think about something that what you're gonna say next. And it can trickle into the writing that way because it is a natural thing to do.
Yeah. And like words like actually or very, when you say he's very bothered or he's very this, a lot of those are ones you can just immediately just cut, because it's just a redundant word that just is taking up space and piling on extra words.
Yeah. And it's a weak way of saying something, isn't it? He was very mad.
Yes.
You could use a better word for mad. You could say he was furious, and that's so much more powerful than saying he was very mad.
Mm-hmm. And one of the good things with this is, like we've always talked about here, you're going to get through your first draft as quickly as possible. And then you can start to target these. You can start to look for these types of weak words. And those are going to be your sentences that you can start to tackle and rework and make those stronger sentences. Now, does it mean you have to get rid of everything that's a filler word? No, it's not about sanitizing your story. It's about keeping it simple and accessible to more readers.
And I think also, because that's quite painstaking, isn't it? Sort of going through on a line by line basis and, trying to trim it down and tighten it up. But I think after doing it a couple of times and it does become a bit more natural then, and you consider your word choice more consciously after you have sort of like looked at it on a micro level like this. So it's not something you kind of have to do forever, is it? You do improve over time.
Yeah, absolutely. That like the word began is almost completely out of my writing vocabulary. Like occasionally I will still use it, but almost not. There are just certain things you start to become better at doing as you do this over and over again.
Yeah. So you begin to use it and then you stop.
Because it's very important that you really stop using these types of filler words.
It really is actually rather important.
Another good spot that you can look for things is check out your semicolons. Oftentimes a semicolon is a sure sign that you've extended that sentence well more than it needed to be. And it's something that can be reworked into a couple of sentences or maybe cut even farther.
Yeah, I'm really guilty of that. I think it comes from as you sort of develop with using these tools, and a semicolon is a tool, and you understand how it can be used. It's easy to run away and see every place where one would fit and to put one there when it can be much more effective to have a more concise sentence.
Yes. And a lot of this can go back to some of the other episodes we've talked about, especially with pacing. A long sentence then begins to drag things out in the story. Now, occasionally you might want things to slow down to that point, but when you're trying to write something that's fast, that's immediately where you want to start cutting these sentences down dramatically so that your reader will move through it quickly.
Definitely, sort of like holding the attention and taking them where they need to go. And I think also it keeps the meaning of what you're trying to say much clearer. It's if it's filled with filler words and it's padded out, the reader might have to do a little bit more work to kind of infer what's being said. Whereas if it's clean and concise, it's clear. There's no pause for thought. There's no, well, what's he trying to say here? Or, it's there in, as few words as possible.
Yeah. And another way, both Peter and I are very strong supporters of the reading out loud. and you will certainly find a lot of these when you read it out loud. You'll find those clumsy
maybe not
sentences.
In public.
Yeah, maybe not when you're doing it. That might be, you might want to have done it before then. But sitting at home, just reading out loud to yourself like a crazy person, and just finding these things, because you'll notice them there so much more when you're reading it out loud, and you're like, oh, that really is clumsy. That's a clumsy way of saying it, and I've got way too much extra here that I can cut out.
I just sort of had a thought then of someone reading like 50 Shades of Grey out loud on the bus or in a library.
Thank you for listening, and come back next week for more. Please visit thebookeditorshow.com for show notes, links to guests, books and extras, and for information on how to be a guest on the show.